For our next project, we're going to create a rock, paper, scissors game where users play against the computer. I've provided you with the specifications. The important thing to realize is that we're going to allow users to choose whether or not to see instructions. They're going to be able to choose a specific number of rounds or infinite mode. This does mean that we need to have an exit code so that if they are in infinite mode, they can end the game. Once the game is over, once again, they'll be allowed to see their game history if they want, and we also intend on showing them some basic statistics. For each new project, you'll want to create a GitHub repository, and as soon as you've done that, you should paste the link into your documentation. You also need to create a folder on your computer to store your code and any planning that you do. And just like before, I've done my planning in draw.io. It was very easy this time because the main bit, the decomposition, the instructions, the number of rounds, the game loop, and the end show statistics were similar to what we did in our last project. One of the big differences is I realized that I'm going to need to check for yes/no responses and for rock, paper, scissors. In both these cases, I'm looking either at a full word or the first letter of the word. So the hope is to create a single string checker that will let me cope with both of these situations. A quick reminder that your planning is not directly assessed at level 1, but having a plan and following it will help you to make a really good outcome. Once I had my plan, it was easy to go back into a previous project and recycle some of the components. So the instructions component is a straight up recycle. One of the other things that I can recycle the test plan for is my string checker. And even though I'll be using a little bit of a different method, the test plan stays the same. While I've got the string checker on my mind, I've also created a test plan to check for rock, paper, scissors, single letters, the exit code, and then something that is invalid. And I did this in Excel and then used a screenshot to put it into my documentation. I also have a recyclable test plan in my integer checker where I'm checking that users put in something that is valid for the number of rounds. One final test plan that I wrote was a looping component, and you haven't seen this before, but it is potentially recyclable for future projects. I've got a test case that checks for infinite mode and ends after 3 rounds. I've got a test case that chooses 3 rounds and ends. And then I've got a test case where I choose 3 rounds and then end after 2 rounds. In PyCharm, I've opened up my main programming folder, and this allows me to see both my previous project and my new project, which just has an Excel spreadsheet from one of my test plans. And my first step is going to be to recycle the instructions component. And the fastest way to do this is to open it, push F5, and instead of saving it in Rollet 13, I'm going to save it in rock. And we can confirm that this works by collapsing our Rollet 13 code and looking at what is now our current folder. Please make sure that you do close the code that you're not using so that you're always working on the correct piece of code. One of the issues with this piece of code is, of course, it's using our old yes/no checker instead of the new string checker. As this video is getting a little bit long, I'm going to show you how you can develop that function in the next video.